This is my Indian FTR 1200, but it's not just my bike. It's my all-time favorite bike I have ever owned, and I love how it's a weird combination of a street bike and a brutal flat tracker. And I promise you, if you try one, it will be your new addiction. But isn't there anything about the bike that would be nice to know before buying it? Of course there would, and that's why I've made this list for you. So welcome back once again, and today we are going to talk about the Indian FTR 1200, but not just about it, but how it is to own one. And before we start, if you like what you see, then consider subscribing because it will be much appreciated. So the first thing we are going to cover is changing the tires, because the tires that are on this FTR 1200 is designed for flat track. Even though the looks of the tires makes a more complete flat track look on this bike, it is not the best street tires that you can get. And I also live here in Denmark, in Scandinavia, where we have some months where it's a bit cold and wet, and therefore these tires are extremely bad. But it's also a motorcycle with an, what can I say, art, because it's not that odd, but the rim size is different from sports bikes. So there isn't a huge variety of tires that you can get. If you are changing the dimensions a little bit, then there will be more tires to choose. So if you change the tire size to 160 and then change the aspect ratio to 60, I know it's gonna be a little funky with your speedometer, but it's just a little tiny bit. But if you can deal with that, then you can actually get some pretty awesome tires, because I have actually ordered the Bridgestone BT16. I know it's a bit old tire, it came out in 2012 I think, but it is still a hypersport tire, and for me that also doing track days, that tire is awesome. But I know there's a lot of FTR owners that are going with the more sport touring tire, the T31, but also Dunlop has their own Roadmaster. So if you are changing the dimension of the rear tire, then there are going to be a lot more to choose. Next up is that fueling this bike will take time. And no, it is not broken, but the tank underneath this motorcycle is actually not here as you would thought it would be, because this is actually just a cover from the airbox, but the tank itself is actually under the seat, and it is constructed in like a triangle, so filling it up will take time. And the first time I was at a gas station filling this bike up, I was like, it has to be broken, because the amount of time it took was just so what I wasn't used to, because normally you have the tank and then you just fill it up and then it's full. Here you have to fuel it and then have a break, and then fuel it and then have a break, because the fuel has to go from here to the tank. So it will take some time, but it's not a huge deal breaker anyway. So the third thing we are going to talk about is the battery, and it's not a problem that I have the experience myself, but I can read on a lot of FTR forums that some of the models that has been produced in a certain time has a dysfunction in the battery, and it's only the battery. And I'm pretty sure that every dealer worldwide will exchange a battery if your FTR is one of those models. So it's just a little reminder, if you get an FTR and the battery is not working very well, then you can go to your local dealership and they will exchange the battery. Next up is changing the exhaust, and this is a 1203 cubic and it's a big twin motor, but even though how beautiful I actually think the stock exhaust is, it makes your bike sounds like a sewing machine. It is so quiet and the sound doesn't fit the bike at all. But you also have to know that this is a big twin motor, so straight piping this bad boy will make your ears bleed, and I can show you why. So as you can see, I already had the race fit exhaust for this bike, and I think it is so beautiful. But it is directly straight pipe and it's loud. I normally like loud bikes, but I also live in Europe where I don't want to be afraid of getting pulled over by the police all the time. So have that in mind. Change the exhaust, maybe decat it, but check the variety of exhaust systems before you make a choice. I have actually received my new exhaust system, which is the Jekyll and Hyde system that has a valve inside the exhaust, so I can actually choose should it be loud or should it not. And that is the most optimal way of having an exhaust system, but that exhaust system is also a bit pricey. But there are a lot of brands that does exhaust system for this FTR 1200. There's Tosi, Bassani, Jekyll and Hyde, Racefit, Akrapovic, of course. So just make a choice. You can also just decat and then keep the stock exhaust. Maybe drill out the baffles, anything, just so you can have this deep sound of a big twin motorcycle. And of course, when we are talking about changing the exhaust, you're also going to need a tune. And this tip is probably the one you will hear the most if you're asking FTR forums on Facebook. But even though this motorcycle is a tremendous beast, there is actually some power hidden inside the motor that you can't get out if you map the ECU. But there is also one more thing why I think you should need a map for this motorcycle, and that is because of the cold idle of this machine. It is horrible. It will stall, and it will stall a lot when it's cold. Not when it's hot, then there is no problem. I have never ridden on a bike that had so poor of a cold idle that this FTR 1200 has. I know when the bike is hot, no problem at all. But it's actually an easy fix because increasing the RPMs with only 400, problem solved. And the person you need to get in touch with is called Ryan from Lloyd's Garage. He is a mastermind in the world of tuning and mapping an FTR 1200. So hit him up on Facebook. You can find him on all the FTR forums. He will help you and he will make your bike perform so much better. Even though it's a bike that performs amazing, but he can just take it up a notch. So the next thing we are going to cover is the kickstand, because the kickstand that are on this bike is designed for flat track racing, of course. So the kickstand is actually a bit tall because, like on all other off-roaders and dirt bikes, it is designed that it can stay grounded on mud and grass and dirt and stuff like that. So it is a bit tall, but it's an easy fix. You can just get a new kickstand. But personally, I haven't had an experience where I think the bike was too tall when it's on the kickstand. So if you have calm nerves and don't have a problem with that, then it will work just fine. But now you know, the kickstand is a bit tall. So the last thing I am going to cover in this video is that there are endless of ways to customize this bike, and it is awesome. Just standard from Indian, there are a lot of spare parts and accessories to create a more street bike look, or touring bike, or flat tracker bike with these numbers, with the foot pegs, with the... There are so many opportunities to change the look of this bike, and it is awesome. Just the airbox cover right here, you can get them in a lot of colors: black, white, red, blue, you name it. And actually at the moment you can have these designer airbox covers in a lot of colors. And as you can see, I have gone with the Rizoma kit for this bike, and that is the headlight fairing, mirrors, levers, a lot of stuff. And actually Tank Machine in France has also created a huge lineup of actually very stylish parts for this FTR 1200. So just go on Google, there are so many brands that has created third-party accessories for this bike, and I am sure you are going to find something that tastes you well. So that was everything I had for you today. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you are new here, and it will be much appreciated. So see ya.